Judge Frank Caprio's court. A woman appeared and immediately started being disrespectful to the judge. The woman said, "I'm not paying the fine. Do whatever you have to do." The judge said he would set up a payment plan to make it easier for her to pay the fine. But the woman's attitude was very rude, and she said, "Do what you want. I'm not paying anyway." Judge Frank Caprio, whom the world knows for his compassion and kindness, got angry in the courtroom for the first time. This court proceeding wasn't published anywhere, but Frank Caprio did mention it in his book. And what happened after that changed Frank Caprio's life forever. Welcome back to ALGEM TV videos. Who would have thought that a kid who shined people's shoes while going to school would one day earn the title of the world's nicest judge? Looking at Frank Caprio's court rulings, it's very hard to guess how deep the wounds are behind that smiling face, kindness, and compassion. Frank Caprio was the chief judge of the municipal court in Providence, Rhode Island. He served in this position continuously for 38 years, from 1985 to 2023, delivering justice. He became known through a reality TV show called Caught in Providence. Cases related to traffic violations used to come to his court, parking incorrectly, speeding, or breaking signals. But Frank Caprio always tried to resolve cases by joking with the defendants, smiling, and giving them discounts on fines. Sometimes he would have the children who came with the defendants deliver rulings, creating a humorous atmosphere in the courtroom. Other times, he would hug the defendants himself and try to share their sorrows and pains. One day, a 96-year-old elderly man appeared in his court, accused of speeding in a school zone. When the judge asked him why he was speeding, the elderly man's eyes filled with tears. He said he was taking his 63-year-old son to the hospital because he had blood cancer. Without wasting any time, Frank Caprio wished the elderly man well and dismissed the case without imposing a fine. This cheerful behavior of his was appreciated, not only in America, but all over the world. Even judges from other countries have acknowledged Frank Caprio as their ideal. But behind this smiling, cheerful face lies a painful story that brought him to a position he never even imagined. After retiring in 2023, he was diagnosed with cancer, and during this time he started writing his book, Compassion in the Court, which was published this year in 2025. Behind Judge Frank Caprio's behavior is an interesting incident that happened with his grandparents. His grandparents were completely illiterate when they migrated from Italy to Providence City. Their circumstances were so bad that his grandfather made a living by pushing a cart of fruits. One day, he got drunk with his friends, caused a ruckus, and was caught by the police. Frank Caprio's grandmother borrowed money from the neighborhood, went to court, and in front of everyone, offered the judge money to get her husband released, using gestures and broken English. Their young son, who was called Top, was with them at the time. He knew a little bit of English. The judge called Top over and said, "Take your parents home. They have been released." When Top told this to his mother, she went back blessing the judge. That little child was none other than Judge Frank Caprio's father, who was affectionately called Top. Frank Caprio says that although this case happened long before his birth, whenever he sees immigrants in his court today after hearing the story of that judge's behavior, he remembers his grandparents and does his best to ensure they don't face any kind of hardship. Frank Caprio's father's real name was Antonio Caprio Jr., but everyone called him Tup, or Top. When Frank Caprio's father came to America, he lived in a one-room flat where there wasn't even hot water. 12 people in one room with only the light of a lantern. He had to leave school in the 7th grade and started helping his father, Frank's grandfather, support the family. This family's circumstances were so bad that often when their pockets were empty, lint would collect in them. But Frank Caprio wrote that they didn't even have that lint in their pockets. On November 24, 1936, Frank Caprio was born, and he started living in that same cold water, one-room house with his father Top and mother Philomena. If they ever had to take a shower, they had to go several kilometers away. His father Top tried setting up several carts, but due to the Great Depression, nothing worked out for him. Finally, he got a job distributing milk, and from a young age, Frank Caprio also started helping him. Once, when Frank was 8 years old, he had to deliver milk to a house. This house belonged to a rich man whose son was Frank's schoolmate. Early in the morning, on an empty stomach, when Frank knocked on the door, a strong smell of toast came from inside. When the door opened, his schoolmate was sitting at the breakfast table crying. Frank thought maybe he would invite him inside for breakfast, but instead, he was getting scolded by his father. His father, pointing towards Frank, said to his crying son, "Be grateful that you are fortunate. Otherwise, you would be hauling milk in the snow like this boy." Little Frank Caprio felt so bad about this that he wrote it exactly as it happened in his book 80 years later. But one thing was that although Frank Caprio spent his childhood in very difficult circumstances, he was very happy with his life, because he was raised that way. The conditions were so bad that on winter nights, they didn't even have a blanket to cover themselves. The milk company only provided one blanket, and that was placed over the milk to keep it from freezing. At night, Frank Caprio and his brother would share that same blanket. Because that blanket had milk cream on it, a rat would come every day to eat that cream, and Frank Caprio was very scared. One day, when Frank Caprio was 16 years old, his father placed a hand on his shoulder and said, "One day you will become a lawyer, but remember what I say, don't take fees from the poor." At that time, Frank was in high school and worked many part-time jobs to make ends meet, working with his father as a milk delivery man, delivering newspapers, setting pins in a bowling alley, working as a waiter in a restaurant, and even sitting by the roadside shining people's shoes to manage his expenses. After high school, he got admission to a college in Providence. In those days, even reaching college was a big deal for a poor family. Out of his 45 cousins, Frank Caprio was the second one to reach college. In his final year of college, he applied to Boston Law University, which was his dream. But studying at this university meant he would have to quit all his part-time jobs. And if he did that, then how would he survive? He got admitted to that university as well. But Frank knew very well that his parents wouldn't be able to afford the expenses of this university. So, instead of going to his favorite university, he took a teaching job during the day and started studying law at another university at night. During this time, a second incident happened with Frank Caprio, the pain of which he couldn't forget his entire life. One day, on his way back from law college, a classmate gave him a ride home. Frank lived in a clapboard apartment that looked very bad from the outside. Frank's classmate saw his house and said, "If you want to become a successful lawyer, you can't live in a house like this." Frank felt very bad at that moment, but without answering him, he said thank you and left. But he never forgot that incident his whole life. After becoming a lawyer, he also stepped into politics, and once even ran for attorney general. But the opposing party cut him down by leveling false accusations of organized crime against him. After this, he went back to practicing law. One day, Frank Caprio was having lunch when he suddenly received a phone call from the city's mayor. The mayor told him that one of Providence's 3 municipal court judges had been transferred, leaving a seat vacant. Frank didn't understand why the mayor was telling him this. The mayor said, "I think you would be absolutely perfect for this post." Frank had never seen a happier moment than this before. It was a proud moment not just for Frank, but for both his parents. Frank Caprio had also been a wrestling champion, and whenever he had a match, his father Top was always there to watch it. Similarly, when Frank became a judge, Top was there on the first day to watch the court proceedings. The first case was of a woman who had several $100s worth of parking tickets. As soon as she arrived, she started being rude to Judge Frank Caprio. She said, "I'm not going to pay this fine. I have children, and I have to take care of their expenses." That day proved to be the turning point in Frank Caprio's life. After that, he decided that whenever he had to rule against any defendant, he would first consider how that decision would affect their families. He said that his father's scolding taught him what he couldn't learn in 5 years of law college. After this, Judge Frank Caprio created a donation fund named after his mother, the Philomena Fund. This fund was used to help those in need who couldn't pay their fines. Judge Frank Caprio's fame grew with a TV program called Caught in Providence. The story behind it is that the judge's brother, Joe, had a great passion for shooting videos. He used to make videos of various things. He was always looking to capture a good scene. One day, someone gave him the idea of recording courtroom proceedings. Judge Frank Caprio was very much against this idea, but Joe somehow convinced him. The show was named Caught in Providence and aired on local cable TV. Because he was a judge, Frank Caprio couldn't take any fees in return. Initially, this show only aired on local TV, but after the advent of social media, copies were uploaded to the internet, and these proceedings began to be watched all over the world. This way, Judge Caprio, with his kindness and compassion, became famous as the world's nicest judge, not only among the people of Providence, but for the entire world. After handling this position for 38 years, in January 2023, Judge Frank Caprio resigned. A few months later, he told the world that he was fighting back against a disease like cancer. On August 20th, 2025, he was seen on a hospital bed, and in a video, He was seen appealing to his fans for prayers. The next day, August 21st, 2025, he left this world forever. He left behind those courtroom memories that teach us lessons in compassion, kindness, justice, as well as controlling anger. We hope you will also like and share this video from Algem TV to the fullest. Thank you so much for your loving comments. See you in the next amazing video.